What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another Bring the Juice Colts podcast episode with your boys, Derek and Cody. And guys, we are just now recapping the Indianapolis Colts versus Detroit Lions preseason game, second preseason game for the Indianapolis Colts. And the Colts fall again just shy to the Detroit Lions, 27-26. Overall, some good things to take away, some bad things to take away. We'll go ahead and hop right into it here. But I think we can all agree here, Cody, that again, Sam Ehlinger continuing to impress and really making an pretty good impression to say he could potentially be making a shot at backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it, man. At this point, like I know people say, oh, there's no way, and I agreed with them to a point after week one because it was one game. But I said, man, if he continues to show out, and yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with it. My issue, and I think our issue with Sam Ehlinger last year was what we saw in the preseason. You know, he wasn't doing these things. He was, he did struggle to place the ball. It seems like he's definitely worked on that this offseason to get himself into the what he is now, to where he is now. You know, he wasn't just a rookie last year. We do sometimes forget that. So I'm not opposed to it at all if the Colts would feel comfortable, doing something with him, or maybe even keeping three quarterbacks on the roster. I wouldn't be opposed to that either. All that I have to say, about that is I think it's more and more likely that Sam Ehlinger is on this roster in one way or another, based off of how, again, it is backup. So, take it as you will, but he's continuing every opportunity he's getting, man. And we've been hard on Sam Ehlinger, and I think for good reason. I'll give credit where it's due, man. He has looked excellent. Absolutely excellent.
He has. And even against backups, I mean, he's almost perfect. I mean, there's been very few times in the last two games. I mean, he's 19 of 22 for over 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. So I mean, it's not like he's just looking good. I mean, he's looking dominant against these guys, and he has been making his progression, the way he has looked, just looks totally different than what it was the last offseason. So take with it as you wish. Nevertheless, it is nice to see Sam Ehlinger continuing to improve. Like you said, Nick Foles went 5 of 6 for 56 yards. Wasn't much to take away from Nick Foles. Jack Cohen looked really bad up until that last drive. Obviously got the touchdown, but really we all kind of assumed that, Jack was just clearly not on the same level as Sam Ehlinger. So really not much to take away from that. But what we can take away, and a bad thing, is the Colts rushed for basically 30 rushing yards, Cody, on 16 carries. So actually on 17 carries. So, I mean, obviously this isn't entirely on the running back group. I think it speaks more to how bad the Colts rushing offense was from the backup standpoint outside of what we see in our starters. And that's a little concerning.
It's concerning. We talked about it on stream, that right side of that offensive line. That was pretty rough today, those backups. And that, that's concerning, I guess, in some degree, because we were talking about, the interior offensive linemen, like who is that, those other couple guys. I mean, Will Fries, and then who else at this point? I mean, we liked Wesley French, but I felt like he kind of struggled today a lot. So it's like, oh boy, did the Colts feel like maybe now they need to maybe go address, get more of a proven veteran in there, which I think even more so makes, the Jason Spriggs cut even a little bit more puzzling, because it's just like, why, it's continuing to struggle. Why would you, cut something that you already kind of feel like is a little bit of a weakness? So, yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out. Again, some cuts are going to be happening. So maybe we see the Colts add another player or two on this backup offensive line. But, yeah, today it was pretty bad, pretty terrible.
Okay, so let's go from one bad part of the Colts today to a good part. And it was the unit that everyone was dogging on over the last several weeks. And today, it stepped up. The wide receiver group, Desmond Patman with a career day, 5 catches for 103 yards and a touchdown. Michael Strawn, his first game back from being off the PUP list, 3 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. Samson Nakoya, the one catch for 26 yards for a touchdown. You had a couple other guys make some big plays. DJ Montgomery had a catch for 22 yards. Alec Pierce had a really good catch early on the first drive. We saw him get really physical on that catch. Overall, Cody, I think it was great to see like this unit in general. Like there wasn't a lot of drops today. I mean, if there was a drop, most of the time it was because of bad placement by the quarterback. But this like in total, the receiving group in general looked really fantastic today.
They did, and that's what we wanted to see, right? The last two, potentially 1-2 positions in this wide receiver room, the number 5 and potentially number 6. And I think it's more likely now that the Colts keep 3 tight ends, they keep, maybe more wide receivers. They keep 6 wide receivers. And so it's good to see 2 of these guys really stepping it up. You mentioned it's kind of amazing, man, what Mike Strawn's already been able to do in practice and now in the preseason. He doesn't feel like he's missed a beat, man, coming back. So great to see from him that he is just continuing his stellar, preseason he had last year, and he's continuing to show out, especially with the question marks they have at the number 5, number 6 wide receiver position. Great to see him. And then Patman, kind of a guy that I feel like has been forgotten in this wide receiver room. Great to see him start to step it up a little bit, maybe start to separate himself as, a guy that could potentially make that back into the roster as well. So all that to say, was really great to see these 2 guys show out when they kind of needed to see something, right?
Yeah.
I think we said Strawn was one of the guys that we were really watching in this game. And so he's already starting to come into his own, and he's doing this, Derek, with only a couple days of practice under his belt. So I'm excited to see how he continues to grow, as a wide receiver this year, working with Reggie Wayne. And if he makes the roster, I mean, we know this guy is talented. There's no question about that. But to do what he was able to do, really with under a week of being off of the PUP, that is very, very impressive.
Yeah, he did it all in one drive, too. So that was very impressive. They just kept going back and back to him. Again, some great throws from Sam Ehlinger, too. I mean, Sam Ehlinger put a lot of dimes on Michael Strawn, so that made it a lot easier for Michael Strawn to just get some separation and just make the catch. One guy I was very surprised did not get any activity today, and that was Jelani Woods. I don't think I ever got a target in this game. So, again, we talked about it before this, like saying, we're keeping an eye on him. Is he going to get utilized a lot? Again, the Colts keep saying that, he still has a long way to go. But if you're the Colts right now and you already don't have Ogletree, you're not getting Jelani Woods involved very much in the preseason right now. I mean, is there an opportunity for the Colts? We keep talking about veteran wide receiver. We got to just see a veteran tight end at some point because you're kind of slumped right now with just 2 guys.
Yeah, I don't see it being out of the realm of possibility at this point. Obviously, more of a guy that would be like a 1-year kind of deal, right? But yeah, there's a couple vets out there. We'd have to look a little bit more in depth at like some of these guys, but I know there are a couple potential vets that could fill that role a little bit more. But yeah, we'll see how this plays out. I was kind of, honestly, like you said, a little bit puzzled that the Colts just did not look at Jelani Woods at all, because I felt like this would be a game where you'd want to evaluate where you are at tight end right now, and it seems like the Colts didn't feel that way. So just an odd kind of situation with Jelani for sure.
Yep, we'll have to continue to keep an eye on that as we go along. But let's kind of go to the defensive side now. So some good and some bad to pick from this. Let's just say first things first before we even get into the numbers of who looked good, who looked bad. I mean, the Lions ran for over 150 yards on us today. Justin Jackson, 7 carries for 54 yards. Craig Reynolds, 7 carries for 37 yards. Godwin Egbuka, 7 carries for 32 yards. Jamar Jefferson, 7 carries for 25 yards. I mean, their top 4 rushers all averaged over 3.5 yards a carry on us. They had 3 guys average over 4.5 yards per carry. So I understand, Cody, that this is the backups. We're not playing starters here. Of course it's not. But we need to say the same argument for what we did with the offensive line, right? It's the backups. It doesn't matter. It's concerning how bad they were. You got to say the same thing here. And defensive line was getting blown up on the defensive line, especially in the interior.
Yep. Yeah, concerning considering some of the guys that were playing were, you thought were going to maybe play some significant backup roles for you in that interior, like guys like Curtis Brooks, Eric Johnson, some of those guys, were even getting blown up. And so it's just like, oh boy, you don't want to see that, from your guys. And I felt like the defensive ends looked a lot better than the defensive tackles in the backup interior, and so, yeah, I mean, all that to say, it is a little bit concerning. Also, JoJo Domann wasn't out there, so maybe that factors into it as well. He's been one of the best players, in those backup roles. So, maybe that was a factor, but certainly the defensive line was getting, pummeled in the inside all day long. And the running backs weren't even getting touched for 5 yards. It was bad. So a little bit concerning there, hopefully, these guys are young at the end of the day. So, one bad game doesn't necessarily dictate how you feel about them long term, but certainly was a little bit concerning, and hopefully just something that this team can, learn from, grow from, and move forward in. But yeah, definitely did not like to see what I saw from that interior. But I will say this, I did like what I saw from a couple different guys at the defensive end position. The guys that I felt like played really well today, obviously Dio Dangbo. I think he had 2 sacks today.
2 sacks he looked really in that
good.
game, yeah.
Really good in the pass rush department. Ifedi Odenigbo, I thought looked really good as well. I thought he played well. Obviously, Tyquan Lewis, guy that started last year for you, he had a couple nice plays too.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like a couple of those guys did. But man, tell you what, once again, Ben Banogu is invisible. I mean, I think this really hurt him today.
And it sucks too, because I saw multiple times he was close, but yeah, just didn't quite make the same impact he did week 1. So
yep. I mean, that's just kind of how it's been with him. Unfortunately, it's like he shows a little bit and then he just doesn't do anything. It's just like at the end of the day, you need guys who are going to produce and be there. And in guys like Dio and guys like Ifedi, they've been there and they've been consistent. And that's more than you can say for a guy like Ben Banogu, as talented as he is. I mean, there's some other guys that can fill that Leo position too. It's not like it's exclusively his to win and to have, no matter how he plays. So definitely he has more opportunities, clearly, but I didn't think it was a great day for his stock.
Overall, in the linebackers department, I thought the linebackers did very well. I mean, clearly the best one was Sterling Weatherford, the undrafted free agent. Had his hands pretty much everywhere. Had 3 solo tackles, 3 assisted tackles, had a pass block a couple times, actually. I mean, Sterling Weatherford definitely has been the stud of this group that nobody's really talking about. EJ Speed, obviously, in the beginning, did very well. Then you brought in a couple guys like Weatherford, and you brought in a few other guys to come in, but easily the best one was Weatherford.
Yeah, for sure. I will say this, I know we're still talking about the defense, but I wanted to also talk. I thought Bernard Ryman looked really good today.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he had a nice game. Didn't really hear a whole lot from him on that left side. So that's, no news is good news for Bernard Ryman. So I just wanted to throw that one in there.
Oh, yeah. And Forrest Ryan was also another linebacker today that was practically all over the field. Felt like he had more than just 5 tackles. So like he was everywhere. He was everywhere today, no question. So linebacker group, and honestly, I felt like the linebacker group is probably going to get the sad end of the stick from a lot of Colts fans, because when we talk about the run game being as bad as it wasn't really on the linebackers. It's on the defensive linemen allowing the offensive linemen to get to that second level so much and make those key blocks that just really tore apart this team. And I'd say the one linebacker that definitely had his struggles was Trevor Denbow. He had a couple times where he could have made some big tackles, but then just bounced off of guys and never end up making the tackle. There was one, he had a play right in the backfield, had the running back at a dead stop and didn't wrap up, and then the running back ended up getting a 15-yard gain because he didn't make the tackle. Like, that's the kind of stuff that is quick to get you kicked off this team very quickly. So that kind of stuff needs to be worked on. But the corners and the safeties, that was a fun time to talk about. Let's talk about the first one, Nick Cross. First half, really showing again just how explosive he can be. Had a couple tackles, had that really good red zone stop in the end zone there on the first drive to halt the Detroit drive that was going on for that 8 minutes prior to that. So Nick Cross, even though a lot of people think he could be a starter for you, you think that he needs to get as many of these reps as possible. And he continues to show you that he's got some big playability, man.
Yep. I think for him and just for all these young guys, it's so crucial for them to get as many snaps as they possibly can, to get the live reps. And Nick Cross didn't disappoint, man. He was, even when the defense was struggling to stop the run, Nick Cross was there filling the gaps and making the tackles.
Yeah.
So he showed his prowess in tackling. He also showed his prowess in coverage as well. You mentioned that he had a really nice, that pass breakup on third down to halt that Detroit drive. And he's just showing kind of his athletic ability. I mean, we talked about it when he was drafted, Derek. Like, this dude was an athletic freak. And obviously the Colts felt like he was worth, trading up and trading a future third round pick to go get him. And it's easy to see what the Colts saw and why they were so excited and so willing to trade up to get him. So I really loved what I saw from him today.
Absolutely. And then you look at some of the other corners. Your 4 of your top 5 tackle leaders today were all corners. The corners were definitely very busy today. You look at guys like Marcel Dabo was in there a couple times. Anthony Chesley had a couple really good plays early on. Wilcox kind of struggled. He was around from time to time, but Wilcox didn't have a great day. Your guy Dallas Flowers, I think, made like 4 of his 6 tackles all on the same drive. I think he made like 4 tackles in a row on the first drive of the third quarter. So Dallas came in, had himself one of those. Rodney Thomas had 4 tackles. Marvell Tell had 5 tackles, 1 assisted. The big one I thought for today. Now, I know Colts fans in general are going to say, oh my God, he gave up a touchdown. He looked stupid. That's terrible. Kick him off. Other than the one play that Tony Brown didn't know where he was at, Tony Brown looked really spectacular today, was making tackles all over the field, even made a spectacular tackle in the backfield for you, had that interception off of Ryan and Weatherford's pass deflection earlier in the day. Tony Brown looked like the best corner on the field outside of Nick Cross, but he looked really good today. Other than the 1 interception he gave up, he looked very good today.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard he really had a good day and improved his stock. And we all know, like, same with wide receiver, corner outside of the top 4. It's a question mark right now. There's a couple guys going for that position. I thought it would be Dallas Flowers, but hey, Tony Brown coming in and doing, I want to give him credit, man. I thought he looked good. You talked about that interception. He was out there making plays. And so I'll give credit where it's due, man. Great to see a guy like him who was virtually unknown by a lot of people coming up and making some plays. So I'm really excited for him, and hopefully he continues, doing that. You talked about you got beat one time, but hey, that's going to happen sometimes.
Last thing we'll talk about before we end this here, Cody, they had the first 2 kick returns for the Lions equated to 97 yards. That is I know it's backups, but it is extremely scary to see how bad this special teams unit has been for the Colts since the preseason started. This is not just the Lions. There were multiple times in the Buffalo Bills games where they made it past the 35-yard line. Like, is it time to be a little concerned just how bad the Colts kickoff team has been? It's not really been the punt team. It's been mainly the kickoff team.
Yeah, today was not a vote of confidence, was it, for this special teams unit? So, I mean, and at the end of the day, Derek, this is still preseason. I get it, maybe a little bit concerning, but these are still things they're ironing out and figuring out. And there's going to be some of these guys inevitably who aren't going to make the final 53-man roster. So I'm not too concerned quite yet. If it continues and lingers into the regular season, okay, we'll have a conversation. But as it stands right now, I'm trying not to overact too much in the preseason, and this is just one of those things that I'm not quite ready to go there quite yet.
I got you. All right, well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Again, this is the recap of the Detroit Lions versus the Indianapolis Colts preseason game. Lions win 27-26. Thank you guys again so much for the continued support. Let us know your thoughts on this game. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.